So let's get started here. This is a webinar for PDF Toolbox. I actually have PDF Toolbox 7 on my slide, but the idea and the original question was to give an overview webinar of what PDF Toolbox is and what sort of things it can do with PDF files. So this will almost necessarily be kind of a basic overview of PDF Toolbox. Still, I can never resist putting in some of the nicer features of the product. So even if you've seen PDF Toolbox in the past, perhaps a few versions ago, then even so, you will probably learn some new things during this this webinar. I have a little bit of a presentation, more to give some structure to the talk I want to give than anything else. The major part will be a demo. My intention was to keep the webinar to about half an hour. Experience teaches me that probably it will be more likely to run for 45 minutes to an hour. I've muted all of you because there are actually quite a few people that dialed in. You have the possibility to enter questions in your GoToWebinar control panel. And if you do that during the webinar, then either in the middle or at the end of the webinar, I will try and get those questions answered. Meanwhile, we also have someone from Callas itself, Mark Huisman, who joined, and perhaps he can already answer some of your questions in the meantime as well. But we will either get back to you if you have questions at the end of the webinar, or you can always contact us afterwards. Simply send an email to info@4piece.com or support@4piece.com, and we'll be very happy to discuss specific problems you have in your workflow or specific questions that you might have about the product. Okay, let's get going. That's enough housekeeping. So what is PDF Toolbox? Well, PDF Toolbox was created, the original version was created long ago. We're talking something around 1997, which coincides pretty neatly with the time when PDF was first starting to be popular in the graphic arts industry. PDF Toolbox was conceived from the very beginning to check PDF files and make sure that they are sufficient for, they have sufficient quality for what is needed in a particular workflow, and to correct PDF files. So the functionalities that you find in there will either allow you to check specific aspects of a file, or it will allow you to fix files. Now, there are a number of organizations today that provide standards around PDF, and specifically PDF in graphic arts, also a number of other market segments. But there are the PDFX standards, for example, from the ISO, that define what you are able to use or are allowed to use in graphic arts, and PDF Toolbox supports all of those ISO standards. On top of that, there is an international organization called Ghent Workgroup who also defines standards, but for specific market segments within the graphic arts industry. And all of those standards are also supported by PDF Toolbox. So if any of those standards are sufficient for your needs in your particular workflow, you can rest assured that PDF Toolbox will fully support checking files against that standard, and in many cases converting incoming files into a compliant PDF file according to one of those standards. On top of that, and I will demo that a little later as well, on top of that, PDF Toolbox supports certified PDF. Certified PDF is a Ghent Workgroup standardized way to store information in a PDF file. So the idea here is that you pre-flight a file first, and that you then store metadata about the pre-flight, what the result was, what profile was used, what technology was used, that you store that information inside of the pre-flighted PDF, and then you put a seal of approval across that PDF by ways of a digital signature. And The idea, of course, is that you are able to guarantee when a file comes in, you are able to see very quickly that that file has indeed been pre-flighted, what profile it was pre-flighted with, and what the result was. And this, like I said, is fully supported by PDF Toolbox. Whenever you check a PDF file, of course, the idea is to do something with the result of that pre-flight. In many cases, you want to share the result of the pre-flight with a customer, and PDF Toolbox supports three classical reporting formats in PDF, and it also supports reports in XML, text, and HTML formats. And those, of course, are much more suitable for when you want to automate a workflow based on that information. On top of that, and that is something that is new in the latest version of PDF Toolbox, there is also a fully customizable PDF report, and you have the default view of that PDF report on your screen. It looks very visual, easy to understand. It highlights the errors and warnings, the number of errors and warnings very clearly, and integrates a thumbnail preview of the first page of the document that was pre-flighted. So ideal to send to a customer in the way it ships with the product. But the big advantage of this is that it's actually based on an HTML template. And if I want to, I can simply create or modify that HTML template, and I can create a totally different looking report, customize it with my own company branding and colors, but also do things like omitting certain information or adjusting the language that is used to the report to be more appropriate for my users. So that's a great new way that comes with PDF Toolbox 7, in which you can report information back to your customers. Now, it's nice to be able to talk about this, but of course, there is nothing like showing the product. So what I'm going to do is show you PDF Toolbox. What I have on my screen right now is PDF Toolbox 7. The desktop version. There are two versions, two main versions of the product. On the one hand, I have the desktop, which allows me to manually open PDF files and do things with them. So I can hunt for a PDF file here, simply drag and drop that on top of the window, and PDF Toolbox will show that PDF file if it wants to cooperate with me. You do that again, drop that on there, and it shows that PDF file right inside of the desktop window. And this is one flavor of PDF Toolbox Desktop. This is a standalone, which doesn't require anything else installed on the computer. It's just a simple standalone application. If I wanted to, I could also just as well open Acrobat. And in Acrobat, I have a plugins menu, which also has the PDF Toolbox desktop functionality inside of it. So PDF Toolbox either operates as a standalone application or as a plugin inside of Adobe Acrobat. And once I have that PDF open, there are a number of ways to work with that PDF. And I'm basically going to show you three different areas of functionality inside of PDF Toolbox. One is the switchboard, which is the easiest to use. Let me go to the home screen of the switchboard, and then you can see that it's this iPhone-ish user interface that contains a whole list of groups of functionality, first of all, and then if I click on one of these buttons, I see all of the different functionalities that relate to color in this particular example. What you need to remember from the switchboard is that it's a very good way to explore the product. It shows you very visually what the different things are you can do with PDF Toolbox. But what you also need to remember is that it's rather limited in what it can do. And I'll show you that by going to standards, which relates to pre-flight. And there you can see a number of often used preflight profiles: PDFX1A, PDFX3, PDFX4, PDFX4P, some of the ISO standards that are commonly used, and also some of the Gantt workgroup profiles that are commonly used. Why do I say it's limited? Well, you have 12 different buttons right here. If I go to the full functionality, which I find under Tools in the Profiles window, then this will open up a window with all of the different profiles that I have available in PDF Toolbox. And if I dare go to PDFX compliance, you can see that the list of profiles here is much more extensive than the list I have in the switchboard. So the switchboard really offers you easy to use functionality, but for the full range of what you can do in PDF Toolbox, you will either use profiles out of the profile window, or you will create your own customized profile with exactly those checks and those fixes that you want to apply in your workflow. This profiles window is the second area of functionality that is important inside of PDF Toolbox. Switchboard first, and then when you don't find in the switchboard what you want to do, you turn to the profiles window where everything can be found. And then the third piece of information or the technology that I want to show you here is the visualizer. And you find the visualizer under the View menu. There are a number of menu links here which are labeled Visualize in Coverage and so on. If I click that, that will open a view on my document that allows me to visually inspect a particular feature in that document. In this case, I'm looking at ink coverage, and basically this is highlighting right now all areas of the document that have an ink coverage higher than 270%. So that's the limit that I've set. If I change that limit to 240, for example, you'll see that the preview changes because, of course, there are now more areas in the document that are over that ink limit. The idea behind the visualizer has always been that in many cases you want to do an automated pre-flight or quality control of your PDF files, but if you have a PDF where this automated routine finds problems, very often it is not that obvious whether that problem is going to cause a real problem in production, yes or no. Ink coverage is a very good example. Even though some area in the document might have more than 270% ink, for example, it often depends on how big that area is, how exactly the document is structured, whether or not it's going to cause a problem further on in production. And the visualizer allows you to do this kind of manual inspection of a PDF file to figure that out. Now, I wanted to talk about quality control and what you can do with that in PDF Toolbox. And what I'm actually going to do is close the switchboard and go back to Profiles. And in Profiles, I'm going to go to a PDFX1A profile, which is, in the meantime, relatively old technology. The PDFX1A standard dates back to 2001 or 2003, depending on the flavor you're using. But it's still the basis of most of the standards used in graphic arts today. So I can select that. I have two buttons at the bottom of the window here, an Analyze button and then one that says Analyze and Fix. As you can imagine, Analyze will only run the checks in this particular profile. So it will not modify the document, but just check that the document is in fact correct. Analyze and Fix will run both fixes and checks in the profile. And typically that is used to try to convert a document to a particular standard. I'm going to run Analyze in this case. That went very fast, and what ends up in my PDF Toolbox window here is an overview of the different errors that come out of that analysis. So this PDFX1A profile that I have has a long list of things that it checks in the document. Well, these are all of the cases where the document is not compliant. And I can see the full details here. I can even, by double clicking on elements, I can let me find one that gives a nice indication on the page here. By double clicking, I can get a red outline around the object that causes that particular problem, or I can hit the show in snap button to show me an indication of what that object is. So this really renders only the object that causes that particular error. And I can run through the document and see all of the different objects that cause that problem. Now the other thing, so this is the pre-flight part if you want. I've checked the document. I can now inspect the document and see where the problems are. The other thing I said is that once you've done that, in many cases, you might want to share this information with a client. And the way I can do that is by clicking a create a report button. And that will allow me to say, save the report on my desktop. What type of report are you interested in? Well, in this case, I want a PDF report. I'm going to select that I also want the details of everything that was wrong, and I want to generate comments or Acrobat annotations, those sticky notes, to highlight where on the document those errors occurred. And I'm simply going to save that on my desktop. And instead of, it automatically opens in PDF Toolbox, but I'm going to close it here. And instead, I'll open it in Acrobat. Most of your customers will probably look at this either in Acrobat or in Reader. Well, this is what they will get to see. This is one of the classic formats. It's not the new one that I highlighted in the presentation. This is still the classic PDF format. The first page gives you an overview of your pre-flight, the same list of errors, for example, as what you saw in the PDF Toolbox window. And then the rest of the document consists of the actual pages of the file that was pre-flighted. So this looks exactly like the pages that were pre-flighted. And you now have, I would have to zoom in to show more details, but you now have annotations on top of that document to highlight where exactly the different problems in this document were found. Now, this is a bit of an extreme example in the sense that you have a lot of pre-flight errors that are generated. In most workflows today, in most typical workflows, you would not run a checking only profile, but you would definitely go for something that is doing both fixing and pre-flighting and checking. For example, if we go to prepress and we look at the Gantt workgroup profiles, and these are profiles that were created based on the Gantt workgroup standards. Well, all of these profiles contain the checks necessary to test compliance with the Gantt workgroup specifications, and they contain fixes for common errors, things that can be fixed without introducing too many risks in your workflow. So in most workflows today, the number of errors that you would see after pre-flight is probably going to be lower than what you saw here, simply because many of these errors are very simple to fix and will be fixed automatically. Okay, so that's the way to do this, this pre-flight step if you want. And what I'm going to do now is close this again and going to go back to my presentation for a second. I need to keep my timing in mind. There is quite a bit of additional information I want to share with you. Now, the next step, of course, is automation. What I'm doing here in PDF Toolbox Desktop is nice, but in most realistic scenarios, you don't want to have people sitting there opening documents either in Acrobat or in PDF Toolbox Desktop and then performing pre-flight in a manual way. That's not what you want. Well, the good news, of course, is that everything that you can do with PDF Toolbox Desktop, and that is also the reason I always use PDF Toolbox Desktop to explain things about about PDF Toolbox. Everything I can do in PDF Toolbox desktop can be automated. It can be automated using an application that is called PDF Toolbox Server, so the server version in that same product line. And the way it can be automated is pretty diverse, actually. The easiest way, perhaps, and I don't have time here to show all of the possibilities of the server, so I will only talk about this and show a very small amount of detail about the hot folder based server. But the easiest way to automate here is PDF Toolbox server using hot folders. I can set up a hot folder. Every file that is dropped into that hot folder is automatically picked up and processed. The processing happens with one of those profiles that you just saw me use in the demo. So I can basically create whatever profile I want in PDF Toolbox Desktop and then apply that in PDF Toolbox Server to have fully automated checking and correction of PDF files. If that is not enough, if you want closer integration between the PDF Toolbox engine and your own application, there is a command line version of PDF Toolbox as well. Actually, if you install PDF Toolbox Server on the Mac, for example, or on Windows, you automatically also install the command line version. And many customers who are using PDF Toolbox in environments like a web portal or an integration with an MIS system or any of those places where you want closer integration than what you can do with hot folders, those are typically clients that use the command line version of PDF Toolbox. The possibilities are the same. The difference is that in this case, you will need some scripting or other integration from any range of languages to execute those pre-flight profiles on your documents. And then the third way of automating this is by integrating PDF Toolbox into a workflow or automation application. And I have Switch on here as an example. Switch has configurators for PDF Toolbox that make it very, very easy to integrate PDF Toolbox inside of a Switch workflow. But there are definitely also others. There is a solution, for example, from laid-back solutions in Sweden. Solution is called FileTrain, and FileTrain also allows you to set up an automated workflow and has the ability to integrate PDF Toolbox very easily inside one of those automated workflows. So there is a wide range of different ways you can integrate or automate PDF Toolbox. And on top of that, there is also a wide range of platforms. PDF Toolbox supports Windows, macOS, various Linux environments, and a number of Unix environments such as Solaris and AIX Unix as well. On top of that, when you start looking at PDF Toolbox Server, you'll notice that there are a number of very nice additions. For example, you can use PDF Toolbox Desktop to control a server that is running somewhere else in the network. So I don't actually have to go to the machine that has PDF Toolbox Server installed. I can use the desktop version from my own laptop, for example, to control that PDF Toolbox server that is running on a different computer. And that works across different platforms. So even if my server is running on Linux, for example, I can still control it from my Mac running PDF Toolbox Desktop. In those environments where you want more processing than what can happen on a single computer, there is the possibility to add load balancing to the mix. And load balancing means that you will set up one PDF Toolbox dispatcher, traffic cop if you want, and that dispatcher will then dispatch files to be pre-flighted to other servers running PDF Toolbox server. So that's a way to have a high performance workflow where the actual work is done by 2, 3, or how many else you need different machines running PDF Toolbox server. And this is also very nice in some workflows. I was talking a while ago about automating files, so doing automatic pre-flights and then having to visually inspect those files that were wrong to decide how they were going to be handled, well, this can be automated in a very, very nice way as well. I can have a PDF Toolbox server which does the automated pre-flight checking, but instead of simply dropping problem files into an output folder, I can send those files that cause problems to PDF Toolbox desktop clients running somewhere in the network. And that means that if I have 5 CSRs, for example, who look at documents and are responsible for the communication with clients, then those people can use PDF Toolbox desktop to automatically pull problem files from the server, inspect them, maybe even fix them using some of the tools they have available in PDF Toolbox desktop, and then simply re-upload that file to PDF Toolbox server, where it can be further processed through the rest of the automated workflow. So this is sort of a client approach between PDF Toolbox desktop and server that can work very, very nicely to set up a semi-automatic workflow for problem files. Now, as I promised, a small demo of the possibilities in this case, and what I'm going to do is go back to PDF Toolbox desktop, and in the desktop, you will notice that there is a server and a server checkpoint files menu item. These two menu items actually serve to work with the server. So these allow me to either start a server locally on my own machine or to connect to a server that is running on a different machine. So if I have my server running on a Windows machine in the server room, then I can use my desktop to connect to that Windows machine. The only thing I need to know is the IP address or the network name of that machine. Now, once I start a server, you can see different lines here. Each of those represents a hot folder configuration. And I don't want to go in all of the details because that would lead us too far. But what I do want to show you is what that looks like from a configuration point of view. And it's relatively easy. Each of those setups has a name, description. There is a pre-flight profile that I select here. So this means that you can create your own profile inside of PDF Toolbox desktop. You can test it on a number of files. Once you are certain that it works, you select that profile from the list of all of the profiles that are available within PDF Toolbox desktop, and it will either be selected for your local server or it will be pushed to that remote server to be used for this hot folder setup. And then the hot folder setup allows you to define an input folder. All files you drop in there are automatically picked up, and a number of output folders on success, which means no warnings or errors were found. If something causes a warning to appear or an error to appear, then you can drop those files in a specific output folder. What you see here with use checkpoint is that functionality I was just talking about, where you can use PDF Toolbox desktop to connect to a server, be able to see a list of all of the files that caused warnings of errors, and simply pull them from the server to your local machine and fix them there or inspect them there. I'm not going to show more about this automation part than this, but this gives you some indication of what you can do already with hot folder setup. If you're interested in more information about the automated side of things, either hot folder or CLI, drop us a note afterwards. If there are enough people, we'll organize another webinar to talk specifically about automation inside of PDF Toolbox. But of course, we can also answer your questions one-on-one. So that's the way to automate it here. What I'm going to do here is stop that server again, and I'm going to go back to my presentation for the last part. And what I wanted to highlight in this last couple of minutes is we've been talking much about preflighting and the possibility to also fix. Of course, what I haven't talked about much or shown you much is what exactly you can fix in PDF Toolbox, what the sort of functionalities are that you have available within PDF Toolbox to change a PDF file. Well, you can see in a list of some of the things that I find interesting on here. There is much more than this, but I wanted to give you a little bit of an overview. And instead of simply talking about those, I'm immediately going to go back to PDF Toolbox and open some example files. So I'll start with color, perhaps, and just to give you an idea. If I go back to the switchboard and I go back to the home page of the switchboard, then, like I said in the beginning, there is a button here that is called Colors. And if you go to there, it gives you a very nice overview of all of the different things you can do. I'll just do one silly thing here, which is converting to black and white. I have an execute button. That execute button simply performs the task that I selected on the document that is open. In some cases, you'll have properties that you can set, so you'll have options that you can choose. In some other cases, like this conversion to black and white, there are no options to select in the switchboard. It simply does the task that you've asked it to do. If I would go, and this is very important to remember, which is why I've said it a couple of times already, if I wanted to have more control over what happens here, I can go to profiles, and using a profile, I can also perform this conversion to black and white, but I can control much more about what the parameters are that will be used during that conversion. So the switchboard is always a easy to use, simple version of the possibilities of PDF Toolbox. In the profiles, you have all of the possibilities available. Now, conversion to black and white is one thing, but to give you an idea, you can, with PDF Toolbox, do conversions that are based on ICC profiles, where you simply say, where does this document come from? For example, selecting Office application or prepress will simply look at different features of the document in a different way, and will do a color conversion that is different as a result. I can specify here what I want to do the conversion to, and I can specify what the output intent will be of the converted document. So this will be a color conversion using ICC profiles. If I want to have more control over what happens, and I want to use either standard device link profiles, or I have a tool to create my own device link profiles, for example, Copra from ColorLogic, then I can use those device link profiles inside of PDF Toolbox as well. It will not allow you to create a device link profile. That's a whole other level of complexity, and you need a tool like Copra to do a good job at that. But if you have a device link profile, it will allow you to run it on a PDF file. And of course, again, in PDF Toolbox Desktop manually, but also in the automated version using hot folders or the command line. And then next to that, I have conversions to RGB, I have conversions to black and white that we just did. And I also have the possibility to look at a document and see all the spot colors in there and do things with that. And if I have time, I'll come back to the spot color panel in a little while to show you some additional stuff there. So let me go back. That's in very short, some of the things you can do with color. The next thing I want to talk about is the fact that PDF Toolbox is not just about PDF. You can actually work with other formats than PDF as well. I'll give you 3 examples. I know I have only 2 files, but trust me. The first one I have here is a PowerPoint. And what I can do is simply drag that PowerPoint on top of the PDF Toolbox window. When I do that, you can see that PowerPoint is actually opened, and I end up with a PowerPoint file that is converted into a PDF file. So for a number of formats, a PDF Toolbox can use the original application to convert that file into the best possible PDF file that you can get. And this works for PowerPoint, it works for Excel, Word, of course, but also things like MS Publisher, Visio, MS Project, and Open Office formats. That's the other one I was searching for. Once I have this PowerPoint open, by the way, I could go to the Present button I have here. And this shows me a number of functionalities around working with presentations. And if I go to handouts, I could do something very easy and say, generate handouts for me. And this will give me a document where I have 3 of those slides per page, and I have room for notes next to that. Of course, this is not useful in every workflow, but if you have a workflow where customers come in and supply you files, this in some cases can be very handy. So the possibility to take an Office document and then convert it into a PDF file is one. And I don't have to say it, but I'll say it anyway. Of course, you can do this in an automated fashion as well. But it goes further than that. It's not only Office files. I can simply drag an image file across here, and that will be converted into a PDF as well. Or I can even take a PostScript or an EPS file, simply drag that over here, and you'll get a rendered version of that. In case you're wondering what you're looking at here, if I zoom in, this is a PostScript file that calculates all of the prime numbers until I don't know what bizarrely high number I have here, and then renders that on a page. The reason that I can drag this PostScript file on top of PDF Toolbox is because PDF Toolbox integrates the Adobe Distiller engine. So you don't have anything that needs to be installed from Adobe. It's really independent of everything else. It really has the Distiller engine built into PDF Toolbox desktop and server to provide this conversion from PostScript and EPS into PDF. And of course, and that's the other thing I wanted to show, if I open up a PDF file to begin, it is not only conversions from some other format to PDF that have been implemented, but if I go to the Document button, there is also the possibility to convert from PDF to a number of other formats. I can export a PostScript file, I could save an EPS file for each page in the document, and this is something that is really used a lot on, for example, web portals and all those kinds of integrations. I can open up a PDF file and automatically save, for example, a PNG file. I want to use this on the internet, so I'm going to generate an RGB PNG, and I can choose between the actual pixel height and width. So I could generate something that fits into a certain box, or I could say it's going to be a preview and I want to have 72 dpi. And if I execute that, I'll simply put it on the desktop. If I execute that, PDF Toolbox is going to run through the document, and it's going to generate a PNG image for each page that I have in my original PDF file. In some of the integrations that I've seen, this is used to either generate a preview image, a larger preview image in a web portal, or it's used to generate a thumbnail somewhere on a website to show a quick preview of a file. If I look at that, you can see that this generates a PNG image that looks exactly the same as what the original PDF file looked like. It's a very quick and easy thing to do, especially with the CLI or with the server. The PNGs that you generate are also qualitatively correct, meaning that they have overprint preview enabled, they rasterize, they render transparencies correctly, and so on and so on. So you end up with a good quality image representation of the PDF. I'm going to actually skip some of the things on here because I'm going to run out of time if I don't. I do want to show you this one here because it's often important. There is an engine in PDF Toolbox that is also an Adobe engine. It's the transparency flattening engine. And in PDF Toolbox 7, it's actually even more powerful than it was before. The transparency flattening engine allows you to do two things in PDF Toolbox 7. First of all, of course, it allows you to flatten transparencies. So to take in a document that contains live transparencies and render it in a good way without transparencies. In version 7, that has been extended to also be able to flatten overprint, and that might sometimes be very useful. You see this document that I have open. This document actually does not contain any transparencies. The effect that you see here is caused by simple overprint. And you can see that by opening that document in Preview on the Mac. Preview does not support overprint preview, so not so much preview. If you look at what you see here, the two sides of the document are rendered exactly the same. This is also the same way the document would look on, for example, an iPad, because most of the PDF readers on iPads don't support overprint preview. Well, what I can do, and actually let me show you this in PDF Toolbox as well. I can actually look at the way the document is constructed, which shows you that you have 3 circles on the left-hand side and 3 circles on the right-hand side. The ones on the right-hand side will have overprint applied to them. What I'm going to do is flatten that overprint, and I'm going to do so not with the switchboard, but using a profile that I prepared. And if I find that profile, it should be flatten overprint. I'm going to choose Analyze and Fix so that the fixes in the profile are executed as well, and I'll store the results someplace safe. Once I do that, the resulting document actually looks exactly the same, but if I go back and I open this preview window, you can see that all of a sudden I have more objects in my file. I only had 6, now I have 10. The ones on the left-hand side look exactly the same, still 3 regular circles. The ones on the right-hand side show me that the flattening engine has cut up those circles I had on the right-hand side, and all those little fragments that you see here now don't use overprint at all. And that means that if I go back here and I go to Result, and we open up this file in Preview, then you can see that it now looks the way it was intended to look. The overprint is honored, and of course that is because there isn't really any overprint in here. It just gives a very good it mimics what you have in there in terms of overprint. If you ever want to generate a proof for, this is not something you want to do in production, of course, because modern RIPs handle overprint quite nicely. But if you ever want to generate a proof for someone and you suspect that maybe they will look at the proof using technology that is not so good for graphic arts, such as Preview, or look at your files on an iPad, this is actually a way to generate a file that will look the correct way on an iPad or in Preview. Okay, moving right on. I know this is a lot of information. We're actually recording this webinar as well, so you will be able to come back afterwards and look at one of the pieces again. It's very difficult to give a quick overview of PDF Toolbox functionality because there is so much that you could talk about. I'm trying to show you some of the most important or most memorable pieces here. Okay, I have another demo file open in the meantime, and this one is also interesting. It's a packaging related file. And I said that I was going to go back to the switchboard and show you what the spot color button hides. Well, if I click that, I get a list of all of the spot colors in the document. And you can see that for each of those spot colors, I could now change things. I could change the name or convert it to CMYK, or I can do a number of manual corrections. Now, in this case, that's not why I want to use this, this panel. What I want to do with this file is simply remove this print bleed indication before I send the file to the next part in the workflow. And in this panel, I can very easily see that the print bleed indication that I see here is done using a spot color, and the name of that spot color is 106 print bleed. I've copied that into my clipboard. And what I'm going to do now is go to a fix, a single fix. A profile is a collection of checks and fixes. This is actually one of those fixes. And this is a nice fix that allows me to remove specific objects. And if I go to edit, you'll see the details here. It's a very simple fix. It says remove all objects that are identified by a pre-flight check. And then I have a pull-down menu here that has a long list of all of the pre-flight checks in the application. And luckily, I can type something here, and that will automatically restrict my selection. Now, in this case, I have what I want, list spot color with a specified name, and I can look at what this check actually does by clicking this edit button. And that check says, look for spot colors that have a specific name, where the name contains, and then you see this complicated instruction here. And this complicated instruction means that we're not looking for a spot color with a specific name, but it's actually a variable check. And that variable part means that every time the check is run, is executed, I can replace the value that the check will use. That sounds very cryptic. So let's go back to the document, and I'm going to select that remove fix and simply say fix my document. And as you can see, the first thing that happens here is that I get a dialog window that asks me, what's the spot color name you want to look for? Now, this is the reason I copied the name of that element before. So now I can simply paste 106 print bleed, and if I run that, save the file in the results folder, then I get a document where this object has been removed. Now, in the desktop version, it's nice to have this kind of variable check because PDF Toolbox will always ask me what needs to be done. But imagine the power of this type of variable check or fix in an automated workflow. This means that I can have an integration in Switch or in FileTrain, for example, where the value that gets passed to this variable check or fix comes from the metadata that travels with the document, or the name of the document, or whatever information I have for that file. So the fact that you can do these variable fixes inside of PDF Toolbox allows you to make very, very powerful workflows that are still fairly simple to configure and maintain. I just wanted to show the fact that you can remove arbitrary objects in files, like the all objects with a specific spot color here, but also the fact that you have the power of these variable checks if you ever need them. So, I think I have one more thing I actually want to show, and that'll be the last bit. Again, I want to show two things, two different possibilities here. Let me clean up a little and see whether I can get this to work. There we go. This is the file, and if I do explore metadata, this is a menu item we have not used yet. It's under tools, you have these explore menu items. You can look at all of them, but I can assure you that explore fonts and explore PDF will give you much more information than you probably cared for and much more technical than you probably cared for. Explore layers is very, very interesting if you have a document containing multiple layers or optional content groups, as they are called in PDF speak. And explore metadata is very useful if you have a document that contains a lot of XMP metadata. And what I can see in this window is the document metadata. So this is the XMP information that is stored inside the document itself at the highest level. And then under that, I have a list of all of the different images in the document. And each of those images also will show me all of the metadata that is available. Now, I have a little bit of a hidden agenda for using this document. And the reason is that if you look at this image that is inside of there, the document that we're looking at is a marketing brochure for a pretty high-end camera from Pentax. If you look at the image and the metadata in the image, you can see that this image was actually taken by a Canon EOS 10D, which I'm pretty sure is a competitor to this nice Pentax camera. So it wasn't probably that wise to leave that metadata in the file once it was placed on the internet. The other problem with metadata in documents like that is that there are certain cases where the metadata takes up an enormous amount of space. We have examples of documents where the document content itself is 2 megabytes, and the metadata that was embedded by applications like InDesign and Illustrator and Photoshop turns out to be 4 or 5 megabytes. If you have a lot of documents that you want to put on a website, or you want to view documents on an iPad, for example, where memory usage is very important, then having that metadata there is simply annoying. Now, whether it's for confidentiality reasons, like what you saw here, or it's because of file size, doesn't really matter. But PDF Toolbox offers you a nice way to remove all of that metadata that is in the document. I have prepared a profile here that is called Remove All Object Level Metadata. It's actually, I haven't prepared that much. It's one of the example profiles that you find in PDF Toolbox 7. There is a very long list of example profiles that you can use to start building your own profiles, of course. If I select that one and I say Analyze and Fix, because I'm fixing, it of course asks me where to save the result. I'm going to, again, select a safe location. And the resulting document, if I go back to Explore Metadata, you'll see that there is now a very limited amount of document metadata. There are some things that are always there in a document, like the modification and the creation date and so on. But all of the images that you have in the document and all other locations where metadata can be stored inside of a PDF document have now been cleaned, and no metadata is there. I'm not sure it's much better from a pure marketing point of view, but at least you can't tell anymore that this was taken with a Canon camera and not a Pentax. So again, whether it is for confidentiality reasons or file size reasons, it doesn't really matter. You have the ability to remove that metadata if you ever wanted to. And actually, you can also do the reverse. You can store additional XMP metadata in a document as well. Now, what I've shown here, I've come to the end of the examples that I wanted to give. Of course, there is a lot more that I could show. The switchboard has a number of items that I haven't talked about, but also here, if you look at the list of, it's a long list, if you look at the list of all of the fixes that are available inside of PDF Toolbox, you can see that the list is very, very long, and it would take a while to go over all of the different possibilities. If you have any specific questions, either you can enter them into the questions box still. I'm about done. If there aren't any specific questions now, then feel free to send us an email afterwards. And we'll be happy to answer any individual or specific questions about a workflow that you have or a certain files that you have. But this gives you an overview. I kept it to about an hour, which is not bad. It's an overview of the possibilities in PDF Toolbox, ranging from checking PDF files, so quality control, to fixing PDF files in a number of different ways, sometimes simple, sometimes more complex. Doing that in a manual way inside of PDF Toolbox desktop, or doing it in an automated way with PDF Toolbox Server, either using hot folders or using a command line integration with the CLI, or integrated into a workflow application such as FileTrain or Switch. That is what I wanted to share with you today. I think all questions have been answered meanwhile. Don't hesitate to send us something afterwards if you think of a question. What you can also do, of course, is let me open up Safari here and show you the Kala Software website for a second. If you go to the Kala Software website, there is a download page on there, and that download page contains trial versions of both the desktop and the server CLI for PDF Toolbox. And you have all of the downloads for Mac and Windows. You also have downloads for the different Linux and Unix platforms that are supported. Maybe one more thing to end. One of the reasons we organized this webinar was the question from a number of people who had followed the PDFA pilot webinar late last year. Maybe I need to end with once more stating what the differences are between those two products, or how they position themselves between the two of them. PDFA Pilot is a product line that is oriented towards PDF archival and the archival market. PDF Toolbox is a product line that orients itself towards graphic arts and graphic arts clients. Now, the technology behind the two applications is largely the same. And that means that if you have PDFA Pilot, you could very well preflight a file against a PDFX standard, which is a graphic arts standards. If you have PDF Toolbox, you can very well preflight a file against a PDFA standard. If I go to the PDFA section in the profiles window, you can see a list of all of the supported PDFA standards. So there is a lot of overlap between the two technologies. There is a little bit of difference in terms of user interface between the two. What we saw in the PDFA pilot webinar is that there is an even easier window than the switchboard, and there was a PDFA in one click window in PDFA pilot, and that makes it even easier to check or convert a document to PDFA. So that's a user interface change. The other change, which is more from a technological point of view that you will see, is that some of the more advanced functionalities that have to do with archival workflows, for example, what is upcoming is a possibility to convert email messages with their attachments into a valid PDFA file. That is something that certainly, first of all, will be implemented in PDFA Pilot. Many of those technologies later come to PDF Toolbox as well, but you'll see that consistently the new technologies that have to do with PDFA will be implemented first in PDFA Pilot. And likewise, those things that have to do with graphic arts workflows, and in the switchboard, for example, all of these very technical graphic arts functionalities that you find, those are things that are first and foremost implemented in PDF Toolbox. So the advice I always give people is if you're working on a project that primarily has to do with PDFA, look at PDFA Pilot. If it has primarily to do with graphic arts, then look at PDF Toolbox. Rest assured that if your project at some point crosses the boundaries a little bit, you have a printer that offers print services, but also wants to offer document archival services to their customers, which would be smart, by the way, then that is something that they could do. Both of those things they could do with PDFA Pilot or PDF Toolbox, whatever they want to select. But because it's a printer, the obvious choice there would be to select PDF Toolbox as technology and then simply use the appropriate PDFA profiles inside of PDF Toolbox. So a lot of overlap, a little bit of differentiation because it's a different market, it's different people and customers we talk to, but a lot of overlap between the underlying technology. That's it for me. Thank you very much to join this first seminar or webinar of 2014. It will not